Hello, welcome to Brian's Mostly Metal Updates. This video is a contest entry. Dennis over at the Analog Archives YouTube channel recently hit 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations, Dennis. So to celebrate, he's having a contest. So I'm new here. This is only my 4th YouTube upload, but I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and give this a go. So to enter, I have to answer 4 questions. Number 1, tell me about your favorite concerts or shows and why. And tell me something eventful that's happened at a concert or show. Number 2, other music you listen to besides metal with some examples. Number 3, some records you like but know are bad. And number 4, what else do you collect besides music? Okay, so favorite concerts. I've already talked kind of extensively about my favorite concerts in my introduction video. So for this video, I'm going to focus on my high school years. I mean, those were like the great years, for thrash metal. And I saw a total of 2 thrash bands during my high school years. So they're both very special just because they were, early thrash shows, and it was the only opportunities I had. So I'm lucky to have seen anybody, to be honest, because I grew up in Southern Illinois. Middle of nowhere, it feels like. All right. 2 hours to St. Louis, which isn't bad, but when you're 15, without a license, I mean, come on. Even once you get a license, parents didn't let kids in this part of the country drive to the city for the most part. It was the city's a big scary place, and you don't go, you stay in the country. That was me growing up, right? So couldn't go to St. Louis, so I had to count on bands to come closer than St. Louis. All right. So 1986, Metallica played Cape Girardeau, Missouri, with Armored Saint opening, and I was able to go to that. I was still 15. I think it was just a couple weeks before my birthday, where I turned 16, but I was allowed to go. Cape Girardeau was much closer than St. Louis. It was a much smaller town than St. Louis. It was much more familiar. We would actually go to Cape Girardeau shopping sometimes. It wasn't a big, scary, unknown place. It was, yeah, we go there. It's fine. You can go. So my friend Joe, he wasn't allowed to go. He should have been there, but he couldn't go. Went with my friend Steve. Now, Steve wasn't really a metal guy, and I hope he's not watching. The deal with Steve, the impression I got from Steve at the time, great guy, always liked Steve. His parents were divorced, and I kind of got the impression he was the kind of kid that could just do whatever he wanted. Like his parents didn't keep as close tabs on him as they should have. So nobody else could go to Cape Girardeau. Yeah, Steve can go. I'll drive. He already had his license, so he drove, and we went to Cape Girardeau, saw Metallica, Armored Saint, Cliff Burton. It was awesome, right? So 1987. Now I live close to Carbondale, so they have the SIU Arena. They're a college town, right? So bands would come through and play there, arena bands, Aerosmith, White Snake. I saw Def Leppard. I saw Dio. That was my first ever concert. Was Dio, and that's metal for sure. But I'm talking specifically thrash metal here. Thrash metal bands didn't play the SIU Arena. Arena bands, I saw Kiss on the Animalize tour at the SIU Arena. So in 1987, Alice Cooper played the SIU Arena, and Megadeth opened. So got to see Megadeth. I tell the story about meeting Dave Mustaine and how he's kind of a dick in my introduction video if you want to watch that. But the show was great. Camped out to get tickets. It was wintertime. none of my friends' parents would let them camp out to get tickets. So once again, my friend Steve's like, "Oh yeah, I'll camp out with you." So me and Steve camped out for tickets to get Megadeth because it was reserved seating, right? So if you wanted front row seats, you camp out. Sure enough, we got front row seats for Megadeth. So yeah, I mean that was a great show. You know, didn't find out, and I'm gonna stick to metal here. Carbondale developed a punk scene starting around '86, and I knew nothing about it until I moved away in '88. Once my friends went off to college, stayed here and went to college where I moved away. My friend Joe's like, "Oh yeah, they have basement shows at these different houses," and I think they even had some, like, there's a lot of local bands. Diet Christ, if you've ever heard of them, I know they put out something, maybe just a 7-inch on Mystic Records, but Diet Christ are from Carbondale. There was a band called Bloodstained Tool, I remember. I think they're from Carbondale, or at least they played Carbondale all the time. And Swimming Pool Full of Dead People, I remember that name. But I didn't find out about all this until I'd already moved away. So my life probably would have been different if I discovered there were punk shows going on in basements, 8 miles away. Probably not for the better either. I mean, it's probably good I never knew that existed. But so anyway, yeah. Uh, did I mention? Yeah, I camped out for Def Leppard tickets also. Me, my friend Chris, and my friend Joe. I'm pretty sure all three of us camped out that time. I don't know. Do people still camp out? Everything now is on your phone, right? And the shows I go to now are general admission anyway. But this was an arena and it was reserved seating, so you camp out, get your front row seats. So anyway, yeah, Metallica in '86, Megadeth in '87. Those are both huge shows for me. So you know, my all-time favorite show was Gangrene in '89, but I'm gonna stick to metal. All right, so here's my story about something that happened. Moved to Florida June of 1988. And like I mentioned in my introduction video, everything changed. I was 30 minutes away from a huge scene, right? So I was able to see a ton of shows. First show that I went to in Florida was Slayer, Motorhead, and Overkill, Daytona Beach Arena. Now, before I begin with my story, if you've been watching other video entries in this contest, Matt from the Accusation Network told a story that is not only similar to something that happened to me, but it was the same tour, I'm pretty sure, just a different venue. So if you're feeling deja vu, that's what it is. So I actually have more than one story from that show, but I'm going to save those for other videos. This story, Daytona Beach, it was at the Ocean Center, which is an arena, right? They had seats set up on the floor. Now, they weren't bolted down seats, they were folding seats that kind of hooked together, right? So it wasn't just a regular folding chair. They're industrial chairs or whatever that's hooked together so that way they stay in a straight line and they don't move. You can't move them. They're hooked together. All right, so that's what they had for seats, right? And I don't remember if it was general admission or reserve seating, but they had seats out. Okay, so uh, so Overkill plays first. The lights go out. Overkill starts playing. Obviously, people stand up, right? People are trying to move these chairs out of the way, right? You grab a chair, the whole row starts moving because they're hooked together. There's a trick to it. You couldn't just lift it up. There was a trick to it, right? So people are moving these chairs, and once in a while somebody would get one unhooked, and you'd see a chair come up in the air. Nobody got hurt that I saw. Okay, it wasn't like that, but people started violently ripping these chairs apart. So people kind of moved. We scattered. I was on the right side of the stage. I just moved all the way to the edge, where there was no seats. Seats started coming, right? People, they'd have them broken off in sections of like 4 or 5 seats, and they're just pushing them to the sides, just clearing them out of the floor. And once a pile started to develop, then chairs started getting thrown, onto the pile. By the end of Overkill's first song, the entire floor had been cleared out. All the chairs, there was just like a pile of chairs on either side. Lights never came on, band never stopped playing. Security freaked out, but just stood out of the way because you don't want to get hit by a chair, right? So soon as Overkill was done, lights came on, security, every security guy in the building came down to the floor, and they lined up and they started clearing all these chairs, out of there. And they cleared everything out. I mean, that was never felt in danger, like I said. I mean, people weren't trying to throw chairs at people. They started throwing chairs on the pile of chairs. So, I mean, good show, great show, actually. Uh, Now I got a bonus story. Since you've already heard a similar story. 1992, I saw Napalm Death. Now I was 22, and I would drink heavily at shows. So, of course, I'm drinking, right? At some point, I'm in the bathroom. I'm taking a leak at the urinal. Bathroom's empty. It's just me in there peeing. So suddenly I hear the stall open up. Somebody was inside the stall. So I like to be aware of my surroundings, right? Especially, when you're, So I turn around and look. Walking out of the stall was Mark Greenway, vocalist of Napalm Death. So we make eye contact, and probably at the top of my lungs, because, like I said, I was drinking heavily, I yell, "Barney!" And he kind of nods, and he walks right out the door without washing his hands. So, I don't know if I scared him or what, but I yelled at Barney, and he didn't wash his hands. So there's a bonus story, something that happened at a show. So yeah, let me check my notes here. I made notes. Yes, that's my stories. So that's question number 1. Question number 2: other music you listen to besides metal, with some examples. Now, this might also seem like deja vu, because it seems like people that like metal, we like a lot of the same stuff. So of course I have movie soundtracks. I love Goblin, for example. Love Dawn of the Dead. This is a live performance, which, it's limited, numbered out of 500. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think so. Anyway, it's numbered out of 500. Uh, you know, let's put that up here. Uh, I got a story. Well, let me show this one first. Tenebrae, you know, great soundtrack, great movie. You know, it's amazing. This is on clear vinyl, by the way. This record, I've actually owned this record for a while. I bought this before I started collecting. I went to the Beyond Fest in LA. It's a film festival they have every year. And they were screening Suspiria, and they were selling the soundtrack, Death Waltz Records, and it was on red vinyl. This was exclusive to Beyond Fest. So I didn't own a turntable yet. I wasn't collecting vinyl. I bought this honestly to flip on eBay because it's exclusive. Never got around to selling it on eBay. Now that I'm collecting records, decided to keep it. So, tell you a story about this. That they were selling this as you're waiting in line to get into the theater, right? You're going in to see the first night they screened the 4K restoration of Suspiria, and then the following night they had a 35 millimeter print in Italian that they were screening, and I went to both nights. So the first night they're selling this record, and I bought it. So once you get inside, they're like, check your record and see if there's a wristband in it. And if there is, you get to meet Dario Argento. So no wristband for me. About a dozen people or so had a wristband. They go to the front of the theater, they go through the hallway, and they get to meet Dario Argento. So the following night, like I said, I'm going to see Suspiria a second time. I said, you know what? I'm going to buy another record. Take a chance. I can always sell it on eBay, right? So the second night, I bought the record again while I'm waiting in line. And I got a wristband. And I got it signed by Dario Argento. So didn't get to say much. It was basically, you know, he was doing a Q&A, and this was before the Q&A or after the Q, whatever. There's a tight schedule, bottom line. So they're like, go up there, shake his hand, say your piece, get it signed, and then move along. We got to keep on schedule, right? So it was, you know, shook his hand, Mr. Argento, I love you, something like that. I didn't know what to say. He nodded and smiled, and signed it, and then shook my hand again, and it was great. I got to meet Dario Argento, got it signed. So I hang that on my wall, and I listen to this one. So, picked this up, got a bargain on this, Shogun Assassin, you know, great movie. You may like the Lone Wolf and Cub movies better, but, you know, I mean, Shogun Assassin is a combination of the first two Lone Wolf and Cub movies, with, dubbed with a new soundtrack. It's really good. Okay. Couple more. I'm still on soundtracks here. I love Lucio Fulci. So, of course, I love Fabio Frizzi. So, this is The Beyond, my favorite Italian horror movie, and probably my second favorite Italian horror movie, City of the Living Dead. They're both great. Saw Fabio Frizzi twice, both times in LA at Beyond Fest. He did Frizzi de Fulci, his collection of Lucio Fulci, songs for movies. And then the second time I saw him, he live scored The Beyond. So they showed The Beyond, and Fabio and his band scored it live. And it's the first time that I'd ever seen anything like that. Only time I've seen anything like that. And it was amazing. I mean, seeing it in person, worth the trip. So, like I said, you've probably seen some of this stuff before, maybe, because a lot of us a lot of horror people or a lot of, metal guys are into horror. So I thought I'd throw you a little curveball and show you something. I don't listen to a lot of, stuff, but I do like a good movie soundtrack. And this is the soundtrack to Mordecai. Now, horrible movie. Went to see it. The reviews on this movie were so terrible, I had to go to the theater and see it for myself. And they're right. I mean, I remember it just being completely unfunny. But amazing score. Jeff Zanelli and Mark Ronson. I don't know what else they've done, but this is, haven't listened to it in a while. But uh yeah, there. So hold on. So that's that. Other music. I listen to punk. I don't have any punk records to show because if you've watched my other videos, I've recently started collecting. I sold my collection. I'm collecting again. So I don't really have any punk to show, but I listen to a lot of punk. You know, basically throughout my life, if I wasn't listening to metal, I was listening to punk, more or less. So next up, number 3, records you like but know are bad. Now this is a tricky one. You know, I own this record and I wasn't going to show it on YouTube. I was just going to put it on the shelf and not mention it. So many bands nowadays, it's like, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to really go off on it, but some bands are problematic. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if this band qualifies as like a problematic band that you shouldn't listen to, but it certainly fits this question. Some records you like but know are bad. I would never argue that this is a good record. And I bought this record because it was cheap. Okay, this isn't the one that I would pick if I could pick any of their discography. But I got a deal on this. I bought it. Uh, I would never argue that it's good. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. But I like it. The Mentors. All right. This is a live record. One side is live at Whiskey A Go Go. The other side is live at Cathay de Grand. I believe it originally came out in '83. I don't think this is original. I think they repressed it at some point. It's on Mystic Records. Uh, Classics, Adultery, Going Through Your Purse, Rock'em Sock'em, Get Up and Die. I mean, that's one side. Peepin' Tom, I mean, that's a classic. Woman from Sodom, Get Up and Die Again, you know. So yeah, the Mentors. Should I say more? My personal experience with the Mentors. Uh, I had Up the Dose on cassette. Up the Dose, that was on Death Records, which was a division of Metal Blade Records. So yeah, I'm gonna just admit, you know, guilty pleasure, I guess. You know, it's the Mentors. All right, I love them. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm sorry, you know, that I like. I'm not sorry. I mean, come on, it's the Mentors. Number 4. What else do you collect besides music? Well, you probably already guessed. I love horror movies. I should have censored this. I don't know how sensitive YouTube is, so I'll censor that. Della Morte Dell'Amore is a great movie, also known as Cemetery Man. So if you've never seen this, see it. Of course, Necromantic 2. I mentioned these in my introduction video. Those are special to me. Lucker, all right? This movie is filthy. Not filthy like sex filthy. This is one of those movies, you know, the kind of movies that after you watch it, you feel like you need to take a shower. This is one of those kind of movies. I originally saw this, back in the day. I collected, bootleg VHS tapes, you know, and this is one of those movies. I had like a fifth generation bootleg in another language. Even one wasn't even in English. It was like, I can't remember. It seems like it was French with like another language subtitles, like not English, but sometimes that's what you had to watch if you wanted to see a movie. It was now everything's available, everywhere. But at the time, you had to track down bootleg VHS tapes, and this is one that I owned that made an impression on me. Disgusting movie, highly recommended. Uh, I like sleazy stuff, right? So, The Sinful Dwarf is a great movie. If you've never seen it, check it out. There's also an X-rated version, uh, with hardcore inserts, if you're into that. What else? You've probably seen this before. It seems like somebody else should. If I, this isn't necessarily my favorite. The Beyond is my favorite Italian horror film. I've already said that. This isn't my favorite, but I sometimes hold this up as the perfect example of an Italian horror film. I just think this movie is amazing. This is something else I discovered, through a bootleg VHS tape back in the day. Amazing movie, just everything about it, you know. Showed it to a friend that didn't get it. I told him I wanted to start having like neighborhood parties and like show a movie, get people together to watch a movie. And I told him this is the first movie that I wanted to show. So he watched it with me, and he said, if you have a neighborhood get together and show that, nobody will ever come back. So that's the kind of people. That's one of the reasons I'm doing YouTube videos, because I don't know many like-minded people in real life. Never have. So I'm hoping, to connect with some people this way. So yeah, Burial Ground is just, it's awesome. Uh, let me, I like bad movies, right? So let me start with this. A lot of you probably know The Room, right? With Tommy Wiseau. I also recommend Best Friends. If you like The Room, even if you don't like The Room, you know. I mean, The Room, I saw The Room also at Beyond Fest in a sold out theater, right? And it was amazing. That's the kind of movie you see it, it's an experience, right? But this is great. And it's volume one and volume two. They had so much story, they had to make two movies. And it's great. I mean, Tommy Wiseau plays a mortician, and I don't want to give too much away, but great movie. Got to meet them at Beyond Fest at that same, showing. They showed The Room. They premiered Best Friends Volume 1, and then they did a Q&A, and then they showed The Room, and then was leaving at midnight. Tommy and Greg were still out in the lobby, like signing autographs and taking pictures and stuff. I mean, they're cool people. So yeah, I like bad stuff. Speaking of bad stuff, if you like bad movies, the movie I'm going to show you is the greatest bad movie ever made, and that's Things. Now, this is a Canadian movie. It was shot on Super 8. Okay. It was, I believe the story, well, let me just start off. It's it's a silly story. It's terrible acting. It's stupid dialogue. It's horrible special effects. I think when they shot it, the sound got messed up, so they had to dub the whole movie. Horrible, horrible dubbing, right? Everything is just horrible, right? So when I bought this for the first time on DVD, that's how I discovered it. When it came out, Intervision put it out. I watched this movie 4 times in a week. That's how many times it took me to wrap my head around this movie. So, so yeah, highly recommended if you like bad movies. Things. Great soundtrack. They've been talking about releasing a soundtrack to this, and I hope they do because great soundtrack. Great, I'm saying it's terrible, but you know what I'm saying. It's great. So yeah, check that out. What else? Dolomite. So I met Rudy Ray Moore. He was at Chiller Theater one year in New Jersey. I used to go to that all the time. So yeah, lucky enough he got up on stage during the Ubangis, on the Saturday night party, where the bands play. Got up on stage and did some comedy, you know, Dolomite is my name and fucking up motherfuckers is my game, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I could watch this stuff all day long. If you've never seen Dolomite, check out Dolomite. Now, let's talk some exploitation. Some of you may be familiar with Dyanne Thorne. I was Dyanne Thorne's webmaster until she passed away. It's when I lived in Las Vegas. She lived in Las Vegas. Met her and her husband Howard. Howard was in Oil Sheiks. He signed this too. The Wicked Warden, Jess Franco. Howard was in that. So, yeah, I basically became friends with Dyanne Thorne. Met him first. I mean, I'll just tell the story. I met him at a convention. Fangoria had a convention in Las Vegas. I knew that they were from Las Vegas. So I kind of give him a sales pitch. I print t-shirts, so I wanted to be her t-shirt guy. So I give them the sales pitch. I give them samples I printed up. And they're like, yeah, we'll be in touch. Didn't hear from them for, wasn't a long time. It was a few weeks. Went to Fry's Electronics, big electronics store. They sell, it's like a Best Buy, but bigger and better. Went there one day, bumped into Howard. Dyanne was there too. She was up at the desk doing a return. Bumped into Howard, and I'm like, hey, remember me? I'm the t-shirt guy. I talked to you. Talked to you at the convention. He's like, yeah, we were talking about you. The problem is, we don't have a website, so we really have no way to sell t-shirts. Do you know anybody that does websites? And I'm like, before I was a t-shirt guy, I designed websites. I could put your website together, no problem. So that's when everything changed. I built them a website and they started selling t-shirts, and that's that. But I became friends with Dyanne, and I've got some Dyanne Thorne stories. I got invited to dinner parties, at her house, and had a dinner party for my birthday one year. Actually wrote his name down. One of the guys that came to the dinner party for my birthday, his name is, I can't pronounce his last name, Joe Liuzzi. He was the location manager for the Terminator. So I'm sitting, he was a champagne drinker. Dyanne was always good at making sure that everybody had their drink when she had a dinner party. She was like, these dinner parties, like, I go to this dinner party and, you know, like I said, she checked ahead of time, what's your favorite drink? Make sure we got it. Everybody had their drink. You walk in the living room or like in the foyer, whatever, there's a radio playing like jazz, right? You go in the bathroom, there's a radio playing classical music. In the dining room where we eat is playing like Sinatra and Dean Martin and that kind of music. In the living room area, there's a piano, and because they hang out with show business types, people just sit down and start playing songs on the piano. It was just crazy. It was like very kind of thing I see in movies but never experience. I don't experience a lot of like adult things. Going to dinner parties is not my thing, but Dyanne Thorne had a dinner party and invited me over for my birthday. It was like the weekend of my birthday. It wasn't on my birthday, and I didn't really suspect. Like they kind of didn't tell me it's for my birthday. They made up something to get me there, and I find out, oh, it's a dinner party, and then So anyway, this guy worked on the Night of the Creeps. He worked on too. Told me stories. Well, I got sidetracked. He's drinking champagne. I'm drinking a screwdriver, and he's telling me about being a location manager, and does not sound like fun at all. That job, lots of red tape. You know, bullshit. It sounds like, but uh, so anyway, you know, I'm just talking about rubbing elbows with like show business people. I guess I should stop. But yeah, Dyanne Thorne, rest in peace. I was her webmaster. So I have a lot of stuff signed by Dyanne. She would drop by my house sometimes. And she loves signing my stuff for me. Got a one sheet poster sign, not currently hanging up. The frame got busted when I moved, so haven't replaced it yet. But I got sidetracked talking about Dyanne, but I'm supposed to be talking about things I collect besides music. Obviously, movies. Technically, I don't collect anything but music now because I've stopped buying movies and I'm selling off my collection. But throughout my life, I've, standard baseball cards and comic books throughout my life. Owned a comic book store in the 90s. So, I mean, comic books I've loved. Don't currently collect or read comics. The problem with reading comics is there's, at least the last time I was reading comics, there's so much good stuff out there that, I don't want to download stuff illegally. So it would just be so expensive to read everything I wanted to read. You know, I just stopped. Rather than download it illegally, I just stopped reading comics. So, anyway, one last thing I just want to show off since I'm talking about Dyanne. She gave me this for my birthday in 2017. Now, the frame is busted, but I've never got it reframed, so it's still in the box. So, Ilsa, Tigress of Siberia was one of the Ilsa movies. That's the one I didn't show you. It starred, one of the stars was named Jean-Guy Latour, I think is his name, French-Canadian guy. He was also an artist. So while they were making the movie, Mr. Latour drew this drawing. This was the set they were working on filming the movie. He drew this drawing. He signed it Latour 77. Dyanne said, as when they were done filming, he gave this picture to Dyanne when the filming was complete as a gift. And she had it framed and it was hanging in her house. And she decided to give it to me for my birthday in 2017. So, you know, this is something that hung on Dyanne Thorne's wall for what, 40 years? And she gave it to me as a gift, as thank you for all the things I did for them. But anyway, I just wanted to show that off because great opportunity to show off other stuff besides music, I guess. But no, I mean, technically I don't collect anything now, but I still have a lot of movies I just haven't sold. Some movies I'm not going to be able to sell Dolomite. I can't see myself letting this go. And things, and best friends, and burial ground. Maybe I sell the Sinful Dwarf. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to keep a small collection of movies. I can't let everything go. But no, I used to have a collection, in the thousands. I had at one point I had tons of bootleg VHS tapes. I still have a Laserdisc player, doesn't work anymore, but I had laser discs. I just every format I collected. So that's it. That's my contest entry. Thank you for watching if you made it to the end. Please, I'm trying to build up my subscribers. So far, so good. Thank you to everyone for liking and subscribing. Yeah, so thanks for watching. See ya.